Did you know that there is a book so dangerous that it was burned in public squares because it revealed what happens to you right after your death? No, it's not life after death. It is a 31-day journey of transformation, revelations, and spiritual challenges. And the scariest thing, this journey is universal, no matter your religion or belief. What happens after your last breath? Keep watching and find out. What would you do if you found an old book stored between cold walls, sealed with symbols that no one can decipher? A book that shouldn't exist, that should never have been found. In the 17th century, a group of Benedictine monks did just that. In a forgotten abbey in the mountains of southern France, they discovered something that had been hidden for centuries. What did they find? A manuscript, aged and fragile, with detailed instructions about the 31 days after death. But the most disturbing thing is not what is written. The most disturbing thing is what is not there, because the book does not talk about the afterlife in the way that everyone imagines. There is no heaven, there is no hell. What the book reveals is something much more personal, much deeper. The history of this book, as well as its content, is an enigma. No one knows for sure who wrote it. Some believe that it was produced by an ancient civilization that disappeared without a trace. Others say that it was transmitted by entities, channeled by mediums who were between the physical and spiritual world. But the fact is that at some point in history, someone had the courage to keep this knowledge, and many did everything they could to destroy it. These pages, covering a 31-day cycle after death, present what many call a spiritual transition. But make no mistake, it is not a simple guide to what happens after death. It is not a journey to a heavenly paradise, nor a descent into a fiery hell. What the book describes, in fact, is a transformative process, a series of emotional and spiritual stages that everyone must face. And that's why this book was persecuted, burned, and forgotten. Because it touches on something many don't want us to know. After death, we are forced to face our own truth. There is no external judgment, just the pure reflection of who we really are. You may be wondering, how was this book hidden? How did it come to us? The truth is that its existence was denied and erased for centuries. During the Middle Ages, it circulated among mystics, esotericists, and those who understood the connection between death and spirituality. Those who had access to it kept it secret, sharing it only with those closest to them. And then at some point, the book disappeared. It was burned. It was lost among the shadows of history. But what it teaches us about what happens after the end of life is more relevant today than ever. The fear of facing death, the fear of the unknown, has led humanity to look to external sources for answers, while true knowledge has always been within us. Why was this book hidden for so long? Because it contains truths about death that cannot be controlled. The book's content challenges established narratives. It reveals that death is not an end but a transformation. And most dangerous of all, it shows us that the soul's journey after death depends entirely on the choices made during life. The question remains, if you knew what comes after death, would it change the way you live now? That's the power of this book. It forces us to look within, to reflect on who we really are, on the decisions we make, on the emotions we carry. Because in the end, death is not a separation, but a continuity. The book describes that the 31 days after death are a process of learning and liberation, but that doesn't mean everyone will experience the same path. The journey is unique for each soul, and it all depends on how you prepared in life. What you cultivated in your lifetime, be it fear, love, regret, or peace, will be what guides your transition. However, as the book teaches us, this path is not clear. As the soul detaches from the body, it finds itself in a space where time and space no longer have the same meaning. What was solid and real on earth now appears to be just an illusion. The soul, finally free, begins to understand the true nature of what it is to live and die. But why is this so important now? Because understanding how the soul transitions after death isn't just about what happens when we leave. It's about what we do while we're alive. The book shows us that the true power of the spiritual journey is not in what comes after death, but in how we choose to live now. Knowledge of the future can teach us how to change the present. And that's exactly what this book reveals, that what happens after death is not an imposed destiny. We, in some way, choose our path. Every decision, every choice, every thought in our life has a reflection on our spiritual future. The moment has come when the soul begins to realize it's no longer a dream, it's no longer an illusion. She now knows he died. In the first days after separation from the body, the soul finds itself in a state of confusion. It sees the body inert, the familiar faces around, the faces full of pain, but something doesn't fit. It tries to speak, scream, touch, but the words don't come out. What it feels is no longer physical. Fear arises, disbelief takes it by storm. How is this possible? The soul at this stage is not fully aware that it has crossed to another plane. It remains connected to what it knew, what it experienced, what was part of its existence. This is the moment of denial, a natural impulse, an attempt to return, to correct what was left behind. The problem is that while trying to reconnect to what the soul knows, it doesn't realize that it is taken on what many call the lower plane, or as the book describes it, the lower astral field. This place is a distorted copy of reality, where time is fragmented and emotions still weigh heavy. Here, feelings do not dissipate, they reverberate, intensify, transform into echo. The soul begins to relive specific moments in life, as if it were trying to find a flaw, a mistake that it could correct. It can relive the last unspoken conversation, a hug not given, words of regret that were not spoken. Emotional pain mixes with the pain of loss, but there is something curious about this process. When the soul begins to see the situations that marked it, it realizes that although the body has passed away, its essence still carries the emotions unresolved. This confrontation with one's own self is a moment of revelation, perhaps the most challenging for the spirit. There is no external judgment, as many fear. There is no harsh God or demons ready to punish. What happens is that the soul meets its own reflection, the naked truth about who he was during his life. What the soul sees at this moment is not just a moral judgment, it is not the wrong actions it has committed. What it sees are the unhealed emotions, the unresolved traumas, the lack of forgiveness. Every regret, every failure is sensed intensely. Every word spoken in anger or carelessly echoes within your essence. The soul sees itself and, however difficult it may be, can't run away of this reality. That's the point of connection with the public. From this stage, each viewer begins to ask themselves, if it were me, what would I find? What words did I fail to say? What feelings of guilt do I still carry? The truth about our spiritual journey is not how we seek perfection, but how much we connect with our humanity and how willing we are to heal the wounds we leave in our path. Therefore, the book tells us that throughout these days, the soul has a choice to make. There is no external pressure. There is no judgment on its actions. The only question is, will she be able to forgive herself? The journey through denial and repentance is essential, but many souls, upon seeing their failures, enter a state of self-punishment. They wallow in remorse, unable to move forward. This keeps them stuck until they can release the pain and shame. The process of self-acceptance is difficult, but it opens the door to true liberation. This is the critical point of the book. It reveals that the key to the spiritual journey after death is not in escaping suffering, but in face him head-on. And while the book describes the 31 days after death, it also asks all of us who are still alive a crucial question. How do you deal with your own feelings? How do you live your life now so you don't have to live this experience of denial after death? The soul that does not allow itself to free itself from pain remains taken in the shadows of your own journey. The soul that forgives, welcomes, and accepts its imperfections finds peace. Suffering is not a punishment, but an opportunity for transformation. The choice is in your hands, even after death. What do you decide to carry with you? The moment comes when the soul can no longer deny reality. There is no more room to run away nor to hide in the shadows. she is faced with something that few can understand, something that cannot be found in any religion or philosophy. The soul finally faces its absolute truth. After denial, the soul enters the deepest point of its journey, the meeting with yourself. It is not an external judgment, as many fear. There are no celestial beings ready to condemn her or demons to torment her. Judgment is unique, personal, and comes from within. Here, the soul relives not only the moments of life that marked its journey, but the emotions and the feelings that remained unfinished. Every act of anger, every word of contempt, every gesture of indifference is felt again, not as memories, but as direct experiences. What once seemed small now seems immense. What was once easy to ignore is now impossible to forget. This is the time to face your own ghosts. There are no more escapes. The soul sees itself in situations it failed to resolve, in traumas it ignored, in forgiveness it never granted. There is no more way to escape the consequences than was not lived, of relationships that remained unfinished, and of unexpressed feelings. And at this point, many believe that the worst is over. They think that the pain of seeing their own mistakes is the end. But there is something more, something that few can see. The real surprise of the after-death process is not the pain of regret. Plot twist of the spiritual journey comes when the soul realizes a truth unknown. There is no punishment nor a judge who comes to condemn your failures. What exists, in fact, is the reflection of what it's real. The soul encounters what made it herself during life, what she built, what she nurtured, what she left behind. It is not a superior being that judges it, but the soul itself, upon realizing that, in essence, it became what you chose to be. This is the true moment of revelation. It is not the weight of past actions, but the deep connection with what is loads internally. What you have done with your life, with others, and with your own soul is reflected in this stage. And this is where the soul has two crucial choices: forgive yourself or get stuck in the web of eternal regret. The difficulty here is not in looking at one's own mistakes, but in accepting that throughout one's life, he chose, even if unconsciously. There is no revenge, there is no punishment, just the opportunity to free yourself. But the most impressive thing is that the choice is not simple. Most souls, even realizing their flaws, refuse to move forward. The weight of unresolved emotions, the attachment to the past, makes many stay stuck in the place where they are, reliving their mistakes and suffering endlessly. However, those who choose to free themselves experience a silent release. By forgiving yourself, by accepting faults as part of who you are, the soul finally finds a certain peace. It is no longer defined by the failures of the past, but by the understanding of what caused them. And the question that arises here is the most powerful of all. What would you do now if you knew that forgiveness was the key to the freedom of your own soul? The journey after death does not end when the soul meets repentance. Free him, choosing to move forward with more understanding and less attachment to what was. That's the true challenge of life and death, not letting mistakes define who you are, but allowing the apprenticeship and the growth do this. Death is not an end. It is the reflection of what you built during your existence. Now the soul reaches the most critical point of its journey, the choice. She has already faced the consequences of her own mistakes and experiences, but now she needs to decide. There is no turning back. The decision is not easy. There are no ready answers. The path forward depends on a single action: liberation. At the moment of choice, the soul finds itself faced with three paths. The first is the return to earth. The soul feels the attachment to it, the desire to return and continue where it left off. There is a strong bond, whether with people left behind or with the life not lived. The second option is a quick reincarnation, a return to the flesh, where the lessons have not yet been completely assimilated and unfinished business remains. The third, perhaps the most difficult, is the rise. The soul can choose to move on to a new form of existence, free from the constraints of the past, entering a higher state of consciousness. Each path has its weight, Returning to Earth means more time trapped in the cycle of suffering, more space for error, more opportunities to learn, but also more confusion. Reincarnation brings with it the chance to correct failures, but it also carries the marks of what has not been overcome, causing the soul to repeat the same cycles. Ascension, although liberating, requires a deep detachment, a complete surrender. For those who still feel the weight of their failures, it is a difficult choice. The soul does not know which path it is the easiest, but you know that one of them will define your future. Here, the moral dilemma emerges with force. Move forward in the search for evolution and spiritual freedom, or return to the cycle of suffering, still with the same difficulties as before. What the soul doesn't know, and what the book gradually reveals, is that the choice is not just in the path itself, but in how it faces its own limitations. What was experienced and what was avoided will determine the next step. Those who choose to return to Earth or reincarnate may feel like they are running away from the harsh lessons they faced, but for others, this cycle may be necessary for completion of what was not completed. The gradual revelation about this choice begins to touch the soul in an unexpected way. As she reflects, she begins to understand that this decision is not about what she wants, but about what she is able to face. The soul realizes that the real question is not which path will give me the most comfort, Zrenya, but which path will help me grow and heal the unhealed. Those who choose ascension are not seeking an easy ending. Rather, they are choosing a path of greatness where the struggles of the past are left behind, but the harsh lessons are never forgotten. They do not run away from suffering, they transform suffering into wisdom. The path to ascension requires courage to leave all constraints behind and embrace the unknown. Reincarnation, on the other hand, offers the chance to revisit Earth and live again, but the soul knows it will no longer be the same. Whatever the soul chooses to carry, be it fear, anger, or unresolved trauma, will come with it. The question is not whether or not it can return, but how willing it is to confront what it left incomplete. And the soul that decides to move towards ascension finds itself transformed, not as a perfect being, but as a free, who finally understood the lessons of the cycle of life and death. She is not running away from the pain, but she is transcending it. Ascension, however difficult it may be, is a choice for evolution, for the final release of what holds her back. The moral dilemma that presents itself here is not just about which path to choose, but about detachment. Detach from what was experienced, from failures and regrets. Letting go of what has already passed, without trying to drag the baggage of the past into the future. This is the soul's greatest challenge, letting go of what the takes. And you, what would you choose? Would you continue in the cycle or move forward into the unknown? The real choice lies in how you face the lessons that life has given you and what you are willing to do free. The soul is not defined by what it has suffered, but by what it chooses to learn and leave behind. As the soul makes its choice, it begins to realize that the journey is not just about reaching a destination, but about understanding. What seemed like a difficult decision, full of uncertainty and fear, now turns out to be the conclusion of a spiritual cycle. The final destination is not an arrival, but a wake-up to the true nature of the soul. Now the soul no longer sees itself limited by the barriers of matter or by the wounds of the past. The weight of regret and fear begins to disappear, and a new vision of what really matters forms before her. What was once shadow now dissolves into light. This transformation is not instantaneous. It is the result of all the choices made along the journey. It is not just about what the soul did, but what she became in every moment of reflection, in every decision made with courage or fear. The process of spiritual evolution is not limited to what is experienced after death, but to the depth with which each soul surrenders to what lies ahead. And now, faced with the final point, the soul finds itself on a new plane. There are no more doubts, no more confusion. It is no longer trapped in the repetitive cycles of pain or attachment. It has transcended not by force but by the understanding of what needs to be released. The weight of matter is left behind, but what was learned, what was overcome, remains as light. The choice that the soul made, whether through ascension, reincarnation, or return to the cycle, no longer matters. What really matters is the detachment. The end of the journey is not the moment when everything ends, but the moment when the soul completes your mission of self-discovery. The final destination is not a fixed place or state, but a state of expanded awareness, where the soul finally connects with the whole. Now the soul no longer sees itself as a separate entity. It is part of the universe, understands the role he plays in all creation. True peace comes not as a reward, but as an accomplishment. Suffering, regret, attachment have all been integrated so that it is no longer necessary to carry. At that moment, the soul can look back and see not only the mistakes, but also the victories. Choices made with love, the decisions that led to healing, the moments of compassion that transcended the limits of the ego. All of this makes up what the soul is now, a unity, a pure vibration of light and wisdom. What have you chosen to live so far? How have you dealt with the challenges, with the dilemmas, with the weight of your choices? The final destination of your own journey will be determined by the way you face your own limits and how much you are willing to release. True freedom comes from the moment you surrender to the evolution of your soul without reservation, without fear, without regret. This is the cycle that never breaks, for the journey does not end with death. It is continuous, eternally expanding. The final destination is each soul's choice, and no matter how long it takes, there will always be a new journey ahead. Now that the soul has achieved understanding, what remains is the delivery, and you who walks on your journey, are you prepared to understand the truth behind the final destination? What you choose while you are still alive will shape your soul's journey, because in the end, what defines your destiny is not what you do after death, but how do you live now? Thank you for being here and for dedicating your time to this journey of spirituality. If this content touched your heart, share it with someone special who can also benefit from this message. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell to receive transformative content like this. And now continue exploring and expanding your consciousness by watching this video that I prepared with great care for you. See you there.